Hello, and thank you so much for joining me. My name is Sarah Sperber. I am a real estate agent in the Northern Nevada market, and I'm so glad that you're here. And without further ado, I'm going to just dive right into this week's topic, which is why using a local lender is so very important and why that is often what might tip you over the edge of winning in a competitive market versus using one of the more national big box internet lenders out there. If you've been following along, you guys probably already know that often my content is actually coming from real life conversations that I have with my clients, and this is one that I had this week. I'm sure if you go through my channel, I've actually talked about this before, but I'm gonna go deep into this right now, so make sure you stay with me. Side by side, if you have two offers that are otherwise completely identical, and one is, backed by a pre-approval from a local lender, and one is backed by a pre-approval from a national big box lender, and I will get into a few of those later on in this video, so stay tuned. If they're otherwise identical and a seller is kind of weighing their options between accepting one or accepting another, neither party will come up in price, like that is it, they're otherwise completely the same. The one with the local lender is more often than not, unless that lender has a bad reputation, is going to be the stronger offer, and here is why. State to state, there are often a lot of nuances within the law as it applies to real estate. And there are different procedures, different timelines, different processes wherein everybody has to kind of make sure all the pieces are in place in order for you to close on time. So I have personally worked on transactions where the lender was from out of state, the company was national, and you know what? A lot of those lenders, let me tell you, a lot of them work banker's hours, right? So if you want to get in touch with them after 5 p.m. because your client has a question or your client is dealing with something, they lost their job, they want to know if they can finance something in the middle of escrow, they want to know how much money they need to set aside because their kid is asking them for money or something like that. Or if it's something even more time sensitive, you want to make sure that you can get in touch with that lender. And as a real estate agent, the people that I work with, we work super closely together. I can text my lending partners and I can have a response within minutes. And this typically is at any hour. So, within reason, I'm not going to be like blowing up their phones at midnight or 1 a.m. and I'm never awake at that time anyway. But for the most part, if it's like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I have an important question I need to get answered, I can get them on the phone right away. A lot of times when you're working with that big box lender or that lender who doesn't even know who you are, what your face looks like, it's really hard for them to care sometimes. And it's also not really within their job description to have to be available at that time or in that way. And so sometimes in certain scenarios, you're like actually calling a call center. It's really hard to get the same person on the phone anytime you need to talk or ask a question, and it can be a total nightmare to just get questions answered. So my first thing is like communication. That is one of the reasons why a local lender, someone that your realtor has a relationship with ideally, or whoever's representing you, even if it's somebody that you have a relationship with and you can get access to communication with them quickly, that would suffice. But you need somebody who's going to answer your calls, especially in dire need scenarios. Another thing that I hear a lot of buyers say is, well, I was pre-approved with X, Y, and Z in our city, but then I shopped online and I found a better rate. So overall, it's just going to save me money. Hold on to that, because yes, you can and you probably should shop rates, but there are so many other factors that impact the escrow period and your loan overall. You want to make sure, because a lot of these big box lenders will give you a lower rate, but on the back end, they're going to tag on a bunch of fees that you were not really made aware of. It was in the fine print. They have to disclose it, but if you don't know where to look or you don't know how to ask about those things, a lot of times you're just going to be taken by surprise when on the back end, like, sure, you have a better rate, but on the back end, like when you're closing everything up, you are going to owe them a bunch of money up front. That is not a surprise you want to have, my friends. It's also worthwhile, and now I'm not by any means saying like abuse your lenders. They're my friends, they're my colleagues and industry leaders as well. So I'm not saying like abuse them, but if you find a rate, before you just jump ship, it might be worthwhile to say, hey dude, like, I found a better rate online. Is there any way you can match it? Or are there any incentives available from you to me that can make this a little bit more doable within my budget? Obviously, money is a very important factor when deciding how to finance your home. So you're going to want to make sure that, like, rather than bailing on someone who's pre-approved you, who's been running all your numbers, tracking down all your documents, answering all your questions. And I mean, I have to say, I joke all the time that realtors and lenders were kind of like therapists in a lot of ways, because we're dealing with people's biggest decision in their life. And a lot of times, I mean, I've been on the phone more than once with people in tears, just talking them through and reassuring and helping them kind of feel secure in the decision that they're making. So before you just abort mission on somebody who's gone through all of that with you for like a smaller payment or a different interest rate, lower interest rate, just make sure, like, ask your people, like, hey, what can you do to make this work for me? And it might be, you know, something that they can do, or they might be able to get you a lower rate, or they might be able to say, you know what, I will come out of pocket for this or that, because to me, it's more important to finish what I've started than to see you run off with another lender. Another thing that's important is reputation, right? I obviously am an agent in the Reno, Sparks, Nevada market. And so as you get further into your industry, you kind of figure out who the people are, you start to hear the same names over and over again, and it kind of becomes really apparent who has a good reputation or not. I do feel like in a bigger city than Reno, Sparks, I'm calling it a city, but bigger, you know, metropolitan area, so to speak, I feel like maybe that's a little bit less of a factor. And who knows, if you are a buyer in a smaller market, it might even impact your offer scenario more. But that being said, if I'm on the listing side representing a seller and I see a pre-approval from a name that I recognize, or even better yet, a lender that I know and I've worked with, I mean, that to me, knowing that that person is capable, they do a good job, they close deals on time. I mean, all of that to me is so much more appealing and makes me feel like I'm protecting my client so much more in accepting that offer than accepting something from a nobody who might live halfway across the country who works for a big box lender. So keep that in mind. That's why I say that two identical offers with different lenders might, you know, not actually be so even in terms of what's best for the seller. And as promised, I did tell you I was gonna disclose a couple of the big box lenders. I don't wanna sit here and villainize anybody or any company, because you know what, at the end of the day, I'm sure just like any company, within those companies, there are good lenders and there are bad lenders. I'm just saying overall, in general, I have not had the best experiences closing loans with any of these companies. And I've actually had deals that had to extend escrow because the lender, who was sitting, I think in this case in Colorado, in a different time zone than where we are, had no idea what the laws were here. Even though they're licensed in all 50 states, it doesn't mean that they know the laws in every state. I mean, I could go get a real estate license in Nebraska, but it doesn't mean that I understand how real estate works there, right? Like, anybody can do that. But until you're on the ground and you're working and you have experience in that state, and not just one deal, but like multiple deals, you're not gonna know the fine nuances of what goes down and how to make things happen and what the timeline really means, right? Okay, so obviously I think the most well-known would be Rocket Mortgage. You also have Quicken Loans, and then one I do want to touch on, I certainly don't want to villainize this company, and I, of course, have respect and admiration for anybody who has served in the armed forces for our nation, but Navy Federal Credit Union is another one. If you have been in the Navy, when you leave, you are entitled to, from what I understand and from clients that I've served, you are entitled to certain incentives for choosing them as your lender. And now I have to say, of the three, I think one of the worst experiences I had was with Navy Federal. These are people who are likely not in your state. And I just want to say also that, like, just because they have the Navy Federal Credit Union name, they're not actually associated with the Navy. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, I would love to be a resource for you if you have any questions about the market, or if you're thinking about buying or selling, you can feel free to book a free call with me. The link to do that is in the description box below. I would love to just chat. There's no obligation. We can just hop on a call. I can try to help you articulate your goal, and from there, we can reverse engineer, help you strategize your next and best steps so that you are coming in strong and with a winning proposition right out the door. Whether you're buying or selling, I'd love to help you. And if you guys haven't already, please hit that like and that subscribe button. I put out new videos every single week about the Reno Sparks lifestyle, the Northern Nevada housing market, and of course, all things related to buying and selling real estate. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.